This is Orlando Sentinel Now.
Hello and welcome. It's Thursday, September 16th, and this is Orlando Sentinel Now. Today, we're talking about vaccine passport fines for Florida businesses. We're also talking about high school sports and a Florida fresh air feature. I'm your host, Joe Mario Pedersen, and joining me today, I have business reporter Austin Fuller, high school football reporter JC Carnahan, and Things to Do reporter Patrick Connolly. Austin, coming to you first for one of your latest here. Florida COVID-19 vaccine passport fines begin today for businesses and governments. This is something that we've been hearing about for a while now, but today is the day, Austin. What do we know?
The $5,000 per violation fine for businesses or governments that require customers or that try to require customers to show proof of a coronavirus vaccine start today. It's going to be enforced by the Florida Department of Health.
Okay. Now, as far as how, I guess, people who are violating that rule or businesses that are violating that rule, how might they be reported?
Yeah, we don't actually know the answer to that question. It was a question we asked the Department of Health as well as the governor's office, and we didn't get an answer on, if you're a customer, you walk in, they ask you for proof of vaccination, you want to report it to the state. We don't actually know how you would go about doing that, other than that the Florida Department of Health is the agency that's responsible for that.
Well, Austin, what about businesses? How are they responding to this? Is this something that largely they seem to want, or are they against it?
Sure, I think it depends on the industry, the business. The Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association says they're telling their members to adhere to the law. They also said that, with everything restaurants have been dealing with trying to operate in this business environment, with the problems they're having trying to find staff, they don't have the bandwidth, even if it was legal, to kind of deal with this issue. They think it would be a fraud interaction between their staff and customers coming in. If a customer comes in with their vaccine card on their cell phone, does that count? They have concerns about that. I talked to a lovely boutique market in Audubon Park. They said it's not something they ever considered. They have been really proactive about masking there, and that's what they've been focused on. But we've also seen the cruise lines push back as well.
Austin, this seems like this has been a pretty hot topic pretty much since vaccines started being doled out. Now, something else that your report covered was how $5,000 fines might actually also go to cities or county governments that are trying to enforce this. What do we know about that?
Sure, and that's actually our colleagues reported on that. But based on the reporting, DeSantis has said, his administration will issue the $5,000 fines to cities and counties that mandate staff vaccinations. But we also know of other businesses that aren't governments that have required their employees to get vaccinated, Disney being the biggest name. And we know that the Biden administration announced that OSHA's working on a rule to require businesses with more than 100 employees to mandate workers to either get vaccinated or have a negative test. So we'll see what happens.
Yes, we will. And if you all are interested in finding out more, take a look at Austin's work available at orlandosentinel.com. Austin, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, JC, I want to move on to you right now, talking about high school football. We're moving into week 4 of high school football here in Central Florida with some exciting matchups. But before we get into those matchups, transition from our COVID-19 story into the world of high school football, I want to talk to you about that and how COVID has been affecting kids or students, the whole arena of football at that level. What have we found out?
This season compared to last year there was limited attendance and a lot of precautions being taken by student athletes. This year we went into the season without really kind of guarding ourselves during this COVID time. So there weren't really mask mandates, there weren't really the social distancing, all the things that were in place in 2020. It's completely different this year, and that's really caused for some hiccups early in the high school football season. When I look back on the preseason week, we had 5 local teams that had to cancel or postpone games. Week 1, we had 7. Week 2, we had 5. Last week in week 3, only 2 teams had to cancel or postpone football games. This week so far, 0. So everyone seems to be up and running this week so far. This season, high school football, the fans are out in force. So much like you see in college football or in the NFL, if you've been watching the past couple weekends, the fans are out there, packed stadiums at the high school games that I've been covering. Not a whole lot of mask wearing, but hopefully that means that most of the teenagers and adults in attendance have been vaccinated. Not that, I'm pushing one thing or the other, but the reality is, I mean, it does make you kind of, concerned going into a stadium and just hoping that everyone's health is going to be okay, especially when you have senior high school football players or senior athletes across the board. This is their last time that they may ever get to play prep sports. And so that's where we are right now in the world of high school sports.
I think those feelings are pretty understandable, JC. Now, in regard to this week, I'm wondering what games are notable on your radar.
When I look at week 4, it's actually the first week of the district matchups, and what that means is if your football team wins the district championship, that's an automatic place in the state playoffs. So the district matchups are very important. We've got a couple undefeated games. Apopka plays at Ocoee. This is actually only the third time that Ocoee has been 3-0 since the school opened in 2005. Ocoee's offense, came alive last week in a big win at Olympia, but they go up against a tough Apopka defense that's going to give them some fits. So both teams 3-0 in that one. That's a good one. On a small schools, private school level, you've got Mount Dora Christian making the trip to Orlando to face Lake Highland Prep. These teams play in the Independent Sunshine State Athletic Conference. Both of them are 2-0. And Lake Highland Prep, this is maybe their biggest and most experienced senior class that they've had in quite a few years. So watch out for that matchup as well.
So we've got those high contender sports going on, or high contender matchups going on, rather. Are there any other games of note?
Two other games to kind of keep on your radar if you're a high school football fan planning to kind of get out of the house Friday night and see some games. I will be covering Osceola at Olympia. Now, Osceola was a state runner-up last year. They actually lost to Sanford Seminole in the Class 8A state championship game. They lost the first game of the season by 1 point at Cocoa. They will be playing at Olympia. Both teams are 1-0. Olympia, as I mentioned, suffered a tough loss last week against Ocoee. So both teams, 1 win, 1 loss. It's going to be interesting to see which one can kind of get going in the right direction. The other game probably to keep an eye on is Evans at Lake Brantley. Again, it's a district matchup, and you've got two teams that started the year 2-0, and they both are coming off of tough losses just a week ago. So this is a chance for maybe one of those teams to get back on the winning track.
Well, there you go. Be on the lookout for those games, JC's work in the coming days. JC, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, time now for a Florida Fresh Air feature. We're turning over to Patrick, who was recently out in Osceola County. Patrick, where'd you go?
I went to the 43-acre Lake Runnymede conservation area, which is right near St. Cloud. And again, I try to get some geographic diversity with these different parks and trails. So I hadn't been south in recent memory, so I thought maybe I'd go check out something in Osceola County. And this kind of proved to be the one. It's not too far removed from kind of, urban, suburban development. It's kind of right next to a couple different houses and everything, but it provides a nice short little dose of nature. Go walk along a 1 mile or so nature trail, or actually about 1 mile total trails in the preserve. But the most impressive part of it is these massive old live oak trees. Some of them might be hundreds of years old, and that's really the most impressive part, is just to wander underneath those and just think about how long these trees have been here for, and just kind of marvel at how impressive they are. In my piece, which comes out on Friday, I kind of, think a little bit about how there's some wonders of nature that just have a way of making you feel small. In some cases, it's the mountains. In some cases, like these trees. And it's kind of a humbling, awe-inspiring feeling in a way. So it's pretty cool. Might be a good place for a photo shoot as well. Take a book, take a picnic, and just kind of enjoy some time in this small little conservation area.
It really does sound pretty peaceful. Great place to try and find a moment of zen. So that being the case, Patrick, anyone who is interested in going out there and checking out the trees for themselves, what are some things they should know before they go?
So Lake Runnymede Conservation Area open sunrise to sunset daily. Hiking is basically your main activity there. They also offer primitive camping by reservation, so you can check that out if you want. The trails aren't super well marked in certain parts, but you're actually never that far from the road. So it's kind of hard to get lost in there. Leash pets are allowed in the conservation area, but otherwise leave your alcohol at home. No fireworks or smoking. It's against the rules to disturb plants and animals. So, like I said, great place for a quick dose of nature. Just kind of go spend some time among the trees and just think about these trees definitely predated a lot of the development in the area. So you might see some wildlife along the way as well.
Now, Patrick, of course, as a photojournalist, I got to ask you, was there any scene or image that stuck with you after leaving?
I don't know if like the wildlife takes the summer off too. It's kind of hot out there, so I feel like I saw more birds in like the winter months. Out there, I did see a cute little dove in the tree, and got a picture of it, a squirrel as well. But otherwise, I just spent some time observing the textures, the moss and the ferns growing on these oak branches, the Spanish moss swaying in the breeze, and tried to get some cool wide-angle pictures of these trees as well that kind of point to just how grand they are. But there's really nothing like seeing the real thing, so I'd say go check it out in person.
Patrick's Florida Fresh Air feature comes out Friday, comes out every Friday, so be on the lookout for those. Patrick, thanks a lot. All right, before we all leave you today, we do want to talk about Thursday's weather presented by Premier Sotheby's International Realty. Central Florida hasn't shaken off its daily thunderstorm routine just yet, as activity is forecast from Thursday all through the weekend. Thursday has a 70% chance of thunderstorms during the day and an 80% chance in the evening. Thursday's high is forecast for 89 degrees and a low of 75. Temperatures should keep within that range for the rest of the week, but Monday's high will drop to 85. Maybe a sign that fall's on the way? I don't know. You can find out more details, though, at orlandosentinel.com, as well as all the stories that we talked about here today as well. For those of you who are subscribers to the Orlando Sentinel, thank you so much for continuing to support our work and supporting local journalism. If you want to become a supporter, it's easy to do so. All you need to do is visit orlandosentinel.com/subscribe. But as for OSN, that will do it for us today. A big thank you to Austin, JC, and Patrick for keeping us filled in what's going on in our community. We'll be back again with more news tomorrow at noon. We'll see you then. Stay healthy and stay safe.
Watch Orlando Sentinel Now live every weekday at noon on our Facebook page and on orlandosentinel.com.